Captain Marcus Chen stood on the observation deck of the Earth Alliance ship Horizon, watching the stars blur past as they traveled through hyperspace. His crew had been on a routine patrol mission near the outer rim when they received an emergency distress signal from an unknown vessel. The signal was weak but clearly artificial, using a frequency that suggested advanced technology. "Captain, we're approaching the coordinates," Lieutenant Sarah Martinez called out from her station. "Dropping out of hyperspace in 30 seconds. Marcus nodded, adjusting his uniform. After 5 years commanding the Horizon, he had learned to trust his instincts, and something about this situation felt different. The distress signal had been too precise, too carefully calibrated to reach exactly their patrol route. The ship shuddered slightly as it emerged from hyperspace. Through the viewport, Marcus saw a sleek vessel unlike anything in the Alliance database. Its hull seemed to shimmer with an iridescent quality, shifting between deep purple and silver as light played across its surface. The ship was clearly damaged, with scorch marks along one side and debris floating nearby. "Life signs?" Marcus asked. "Scanning now," replied Dr. James Park, the ship's science officer. "I'm reading... This is strange. One life sign, but the biological readings are unlike anything I've seen before. Definitely humanoid, but with significant variations in cellular structure." Marcus made his decision quickly. "Prepare a boarding team. Standard first contact protocols. Martinez, you're with me. Park, monitor from here." 20 minutes later, Marcus and his team stood in the airlock of the alien vessel. The interior was surprisingly elegant, with smooth curves and soft lighting that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. They found the source of the life sign in what appeared to be the ship's command center. She was lying unconscious on the floor, and Marcus felt his breath catch. The being before them was undeniably beautiful, with features that were almost human, but somehow more refined. Her skin had a faint luminescent quality, and her hair, which appeared to be a deep midnight blue, seemed to move slightly as if suspended in water. She wore elaborate robes that sparkled with tiny points of light. "Medical team to the command center," Marcus ordered through his communicator. As they waited, the alien's eyes fluttered open. They were a striking violet color. And when they focused on Marcus, he saw intelligence and wariness in equal measure. She spoke, and although Marcus didn't understand the language, his universal translator kicked in after a moment. You answered my call," she said weakly. "I was not certain anyone would come." "We're here to help," Marcus said gently, kneeling beside her. "I'm Captain Marcus Chen of the Earth Alliance ship Horizon. You're safe now." The alien tried to sit up, wincing in pain. "I am Lirelai of House Vorthen, Crown Princess of the Andromedan Empire. My ship was attacked by pirates. They killed my guards. I barely escaped." The medical team arrived and began examining her with portable scanners. Dr. Emily Rodriguez, the chief medical officer, looked concerned. "Captain, she has several internal injuries and signs of radiation exposure. We need to get her to our medical bay immediately." As they carefully moved Lirelai to a stretcher, she grasped Marcus's hand. Her touch sent an unexpected jolt through him, like static electricity, but somehow warm and pleasant. "Please," she whispered. "There is something you must know. I was not traveling randomly. I was searching for something. Someone." Before Marcus could ask what she meant, Lirelai lost consciousness again. They rushed her to the Horizon's medical bay, where Dr. Rodriguez and her team worked for hours to stabilize the alien princess. Marcus found himself pacing outside, unusually anxious about someone he had just met. "Captain," Park's voice came through the communicator, "I've been analyzing the princess's ship. The technology is centuries ahead of ours, but more interesting is what I found in the computer logs. She's been visiting human colonies and outposts for the past several months, always asking questions about Earth and human culture." Marcus frowned. "Any indication why?" Not yet, but there's something else. According to these records, she left her homeworld against the explicit orders of the Imperial Council. Whatever she's looking for, it was important enough to risk everything. Hours passed before Dr. Rodriguez finally emerged from the medical bay. She's stable, the doctor reported. Her physiology is remarkable. She's healing at an accelerated rate compared to humans. She should be conscious soon. Marcus entered the medical bay to find Lyrelay awake, studying her surroundings with curious eyes. When she saw him, something in her expression softened. "Captain Chen," she said, pronouncing his name carefully, "I owe you my life." "No debt necessary," Marcus replied, pulling up a chair beside her bed. "But I am curious about what brings an Andromedan princess to this sector of space, especially alone." Lyrelay was quiet for a moment, seeming to gather her thoughts. "Have you ever heard of the prophecy of the bonded stars, Captain?" Marcus shook his head. "I'm afraid not." "It is an ancient text from my world, written thousands of years ago. It speaks of a time when our empire would face its greatest threat, and salvation would come from an unexpected union. The prophecy describes specific signs and portents, all of which have come to pass in recent years." She paused, her violet eyes meeting his. "All except one. Which is? The union itself, between one of royal Andromedan blood and a human." Marcus felt his eyebrows rise. Humans have only been spacefaring for 200 years. How could an ancient prophecy mention us? "That is what I wondered as well," Lyrelay admitted. "But the descriptions are unmistakable. A species from a blue world who achieved spaceflight through mechanical means rather than biological adaptation, who possess unusual resilience and adaptability, whose genetic structure allows for remarkable compatibility with other humanoid species." She shifted in the bed, wincing slightly. 6 months ago, our long-range sensors detected an anomaly approaching our galaxy, a vast darkness that consumes everything in its path. Stars, planets, entire systems simply cease to exist. Our scientists estimate it will reach the Andromedan Empire within 2 years. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "And you believe this prophecy holds the answer?" "I believe it may be our only hope," Lyrelay said softly. "The prophecy speaks of a power that can only be awakened through the willing union of Andromedan and human, a force that can stand against the darkness. My father, the Emperor, forbade me from pursuing this path. He believes it is merely superstition. But I have seen the darkness myself, Captain. I have felt its hunger. I could not stand by and do nothing." She reached out and took his hand again. This time, the sensation was even stronger, and Marcus saw her eyes widen. "You feel it too," she breathed. "The resonance. It is as the prophecy described." Marcus didn't pull his hand away, though his rational mind was spinning. "Princess, I don't know anything about prophecies or resonances, but if there's a threat to inhabited space, the Alliance needs to know about it." "Of course," Lyrelay agreed. "But Captain..." "Marcus, there is something else I must tell you. The prophecy is specific about the nature of the union. It cannot be forced or arranged for political purposes. It must arise from genuine choice and connection." She squeezed his hand gently. "I have visited 17 human colonies in my search. I have met hundreds of your people. But this resonance, this feeling, I have only experienced it with you." Marcus found himself lost in her violet eyes, feeling a pull he couldn't quite explain. The rational part of his mind knew this was all moving too fast, that he needed to verify her claims and follow proper protocols. But another part, a part that had nothing to do with logic, recognized something in her that he had never found before. "What exactly are you asking of me, Princess?" he said quietly. "For now, only that you keep an open mind," she replied. "Let me heal. Let me show you the evidence I have gathered. Let us come to know each other. The prophecy speaks of choice, and I would not take that from either of us." Over the following days, as Lyrelay recovered, Marcus found himself spending more and more time in the medical bay. They talked for hours about their respective cultures, their dreams, their fears. Lyrelay was fascinated by humanity's diversity and creativity, while Marcus was amazed by the depth of Andromedan history and philosophy. The crew began to notice the growing connection between their captain and their unusual guest. Sarah Martinez, who had served with Marcus for 3 years, pulled him aside one afternoon. "Captain, I don't mean to overstep, but are you sure about whatever this is?" Marcus sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. "I'm not sure about anything, Sarah, but I can't ignore the fact that she might be telling the truth about this threat. And I can't ignore—" He trailed off. "The way you look at each other?" Sarah supplied with a slight smile. "Yeah, we've all noticed. Just be careful, sir. Princess or not, she's still an unknown." But as the days passed, Lyrelay became less of an unknown and more of a constant presence in Marcus's thoughts. She shared the data from her ship's computers, showing the progression of the anomaly through distant galaxies. The evidence was terrifying in its implications. Whatever the darkness was, it left nothing behind, not even empty space. It was as if reality itself was being erased. Park and the science team worked around the clock to verify the data. Their conclusions were grim. "If this thing maintains its current trajectory and speed, it will reach the Milky Way in approximately 22 months, Park reported to the senior staff. "The Andromedan Empire will be hit first, but Earth won't be far behind." "What about weapons? Defenses?" Marcus asked. Park shook his head. "According to the princess's data, 3 civilizations have tried to stop it. None of their weapons had any effect. Energy beams, projectiles, even antimatter bombs. The darkness just absorbed them all." It was then that Lyrelay entered the briefing room, having been cleared by medical to move about the ship. She moved with a fluid grace that drew every eye. "This is why the prophecy gives me hope," she said. "Traditional weapons and technology have failed, but the power described in the ancient texts is something different, something that draws on the connection between living beings rather than mechanical force." "Respectfully, Princess," Dr. Rodriguez interjected, "how can a personal connection, even one based on this resonance you describe, stop something that can consume entire star systems?" Lyrelay moved to the view screen, calling up an image from her cultural database. It showed 2 figures surrounded by a brilliant light that seemed to push back encroaching darkness. "The prophecy speaks of the bonded stars, 2 souls that, when united willingly in perfect harmony, can channel a force that exists between dimensions. It is not about destruction, but about restoration. About reminding the universe of what it means to exist, to live, to love." She turned to face the assembled officers, but her eyes found Marcus. "I know how it sounds, like a fairy tale. But what if it's not? What if there's even a chance it could work? Can we afford not to try?" The room was silent for a long moment. Finally, Marcus stood. "I need to report this to Alliance Command. They need to know about the threat, and about all of it. In the meantime, Princess Lyrelay remains our guest. We'll continue to analyze the data and explore all options." As the meeting dispersed, Lyrelay approached Marcus. "Walk with me," she asked softly. He nodded, and they made their way to the observation deck, where the stars streamed by in long lines of light. "I know this is difficult for you," Lyrelay said, gazing out at the stars. "Your people value logic and evidence. Mine do as well in most things. But sometimes, Marcus, we must trust in things we cannot fully understand." "It's not just about understanding," Marcus replied. "You're asking me to believe that you and I together could somehow save 2 galaxies from annihilation. That's a heavy burden to place on anyone, let alone a relationship that's barely begun. Lyrelay turned to him, and in the starlight, her luminescent skin seemed to glow softly. I'm not asking you to save the galaxies. I'm asking you to be open to the possibility that what we feel might be real, might have a purpose beyond ourselves. The rest, we face together, whatever comes. She reached up and gently touched his cheek. The now familiar tingle of energy passed between them, but this time Marcus didn't pull away. Instead, he covered her hand with his own. I need time, he said, to think, to understand what this means. Time is one thing we have little of, Lyrelay reminded him gently. But I understand. I did not cross the void between galaxies expecting this to be simple. As they stood together, watching the stars, an alert sounded through the ship. Captain to the bridge, came the urgent call. We're receiving a priority transmission from Earth. Marcus and Lyrelay rushed to the bridge, where the main screen showed Admiral Catherine Shaw, commander of the Earth Alliance fleet. Her expression was grim. Captain Chen, we've received your preliminary report. The data you've sent has been verified by our science teams. This anomaly represents a clear and present danger to all life in both galaxies. The Admiral's eyes shifted to Lyrelay. Princess Lyrelay of the Andromedan Empire, I am authorized by the Alliance Council to extend our full cooperation in addressing this threat. We're mobilizing our fleets and reaching out to all allied species. However, she paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. We've also reviewed your cultural database regarding this prophecy. While the Alliance doesn't officially endorse actions based on unverified ancient texts, we recognize that conventional weapons appear ineffective against this threat. What are you saying, Admiral? Marcus asked. I'm saying, Captain, that we're willing to explore all options, no matter how unconventional. A joint task force is being assembled with ships from Earth, Andromeda, and several other species. You're to rendezvous with them at Starbase Echo in 72 hours. And, Captain? The Admiral's expression softened slightly. Whatever personal decisions need to be made regarding this prophecy, the Alliance trusts your judgment. After the transmission ended, the bridge was quiet. Marcus felt the weight of command pressing on his shoulders heavier than ever before. He wasn't just responsible for his ship and crew now, he might be responsible for the fate of billions. Captain, Lyrelay said softly, whatever happens, you won't face it alone. Marcus met her eyes and saw the same determination he felt, mixed with something deeper, something that, despite all logic and reason, felt like coming home. The journey to Starbase Echo took 3 days through hyperspace. During that time, the horizon buzzed with activity as the crew prepared for what might be humanity's greatest challenge. Marcus found himself torn between his duties as captain and his growing need to understand the connection he felt with Lyrelay. Late in the evening of their second day in hyperspace, Marcus found Lyrelay in the ship's botanical garden. She was sitting beside the small pond, her fingers trailing in the water, creating ripples that caught the artificial moonlight. The plants around her seemed more vibrant somehow, their leaves turning toward her as if she were a source of nourishment. The plants respond to you, Marcus observed, taking a seat beside her on the bench. Lyrelay smiled softly. All living things are connected, Marcus. Your scientists are beginning to understand this through quantum entanglement, but my people have known it for millennia. We call it the life web. She lifted her hand from the water, and tiny droplets seemed to dance around her fingers before falling back. Humans have this connection too, though many have forgotten how to feel it. Is that part of what makes us compatible? Marcus asked. According to your prophecy? Perhaps, Lyrelay said, turning to face him. In the soft light, her features were ethereal, but her expression was very human in its vulnerability. But Marcus, I need you to understand something. Even if there were no prophecy, no approaching darkness, I would still be here. What do you mean? She took a deep breath. Among my people, I am considered strange. I have always been fascinated by other cultures, other ways of being. When I first learned of humans through our long-range observations, I was captivated. A species that achieved space travel not through biological adaptation or inherited memory, but through determination and ingenuity. You created machines to carry you to the stars because you refused to accept the limitations of your bodies. She stood and walked to a flowering vine, gently touching its blossoms. Do you know what impressed me most? Your art, your music, the way you capture emotion and experience in forms that can be shared. Andromedans communicate through energy patterns and shared consciousness, but humans, you create something from nothing and make it beautiful. Marcus joined her by the vine. You make us sound more special than we are. We're also capable of great destruction, of petty conflicts and stupid mistakes. Yes, Lyra Lay exclaimed, her eyes bright. That's part of what makes you remarkable. You're flawed and know it, yet you keep trying to be better. My people have been stable for thousands of years, but stability can become stagnation. Humans are chaos and creativity combined. She reached out and took his hand, the familiar energy flowing between them stronger than ever. When I began my search, I told myself it was only about the prophecy, about saving our galaxies. But when I met you, when I felt this connection, she squeezed his hand. I realized I had been searching for you long before I knew you existed. Marcus felt his heart racing. Everything logical said this was too fast, too strange. But standing there in the garden, with her hand in his and the energy flowing between them like a river of light, logic seemed less important than truth. And the truth was, he felt the same pull, the same recognition. Laterally, he began, but she placed a finger gently on his lips. I know, she said. You need time. You need to see the evidence, to meet with the task force, to explore every option. I understand. Just don't close your heart to possibility. A soft chime interrupted them. Captain, came Martinez's voice over the intercom. We'll be dropping out of hyperspace in 30 minutes. Marcus straightened, the captain reasserting itself over the man. On my way. He looked at Lyra Lai. Whatever happens at the starbase, we face it together. She smiled, and for a moment the garden seemed to pulse with warm light. Together. Starbase Echo was a marvel of cooperative engineering, built jointly by humans and their first alien allies, the Centaurians. As the horizon approached, Marcus could see dozens of ships already assembled. Sleek Earth Alliance vessels, crystalline Centaurian scouts, and now, for the first time, the graceful Andromedan ships that seemed to swim through space rather than fly. The meeting hall was packed with representatives from multiple species. Marcus had never seen such diversity gathered in one place. At the center of it all stood Admiral Shaw, flanked by the Centaurian High Commander Thex and a tall Andromedan male who could only be Father, Lyra breathed beside Marcus. Emperor Vorthon stood nearly 7 feet tall, his presence commanding even in a room full of leaders. His skin had the same luminescent quality as his daughter's, but his eyes were harder, showing the weight of centuries of rule. When those eyes found Lyra, they softened for just a moment before returning to imperial coldness. Princess Lyra, he said formally, you have caused considerable concern with your unauthorized departure. The concern should be for our people, Father, Lyra replied, matching his formal tone. For all people, if we cannot find a way to stop the darkness. The Emperor's gaze shifted to Marcus, and the captain felt as if he were being scanned down to his atoms. And this is the human you believe fulfills the prophecy? I am Captain Marcus Chen of the Earth Alliance, Marcus said, stepping forward. Whatever the princess believes, I'm here to help find a solution to the threat we all face. Indeed, the Emperor said coolly. We shall see. Admiral Shaw called the assembly to order. The next hours were filled with reports and projections, each more dire than the last. The darkness had accelerated, consuming 2 more systems in the past week alone. Long-range probes sent to investigate had simply vanished, their signals cutting off the moment they approached the anomaly's edge. We've run every simulation, reported the Centaurian science minister. No known weapon or shield has any theoretical chance of effectiveness. The darkness appears to exist partially outside normal space-time, making conventional attacks useless. What about evacuation? Suggested a representative from the outer colonies. Can we move our populations beyond its path? To where? Emperor Vorthon asked grimly. The darkness is expanding in all directions. It will eventually consume everything. There is nowhere to run. The room fell into despairing silence. It was then that Lirelai stood. There is another option, she said, her clear voice carrying through the hall. The prophecy of the bonded stars. A ripple of reaction went through the assembly, some dismissive, others curious. Emperor Vorthon's expression was carefully neutral. Daughter, this is not the time for ancient superstitions. Is it superstition, father? Lirelai challenged. Or is it a record of something that worked before? The prophecy speaks of a similar darkness that threatened our ancestors. They found a way to stop it, through the union of 2 souls from different stars. She moved to the center of the room, and Marcus noticed how the lighting seemed to bend around her, making her glow. I have spent months researching, cross-referencing our oldest texts with the histories of other species. The pattern repeats across cultures, a great darkness, a union of different peoples, a light that restores balance. Even if such stories have a grain of truth, Admiral Shaw said diplomatically, how do we translate ancient mythology into practical action? It was Marcus who answered, surprising himself by standing. We test it, he said simply. The princess and I have experienced something, a connection, an energy transfer that defies conventional explanation. Our science teams should study it. See if it can be understood and amplified. You would volunteer for this? Emperor Vorthon asked, his tone giving nothing away. Marcus met the Emperor's gaze steadily. If there's even a chance it could help, yes. The assembly erupted in discussion. Some called it desperate, others hopeful. Through it all, Marcus was aware of Lirelai beside him, her presence both calming and energizing. Finally, Admiral Shaw restored order. We'll pursue all avenues, she declared. The fleets will continue to prepare conventional defenses. Our science teams will investigate this phenomenon between the princess and Captain Chen. We reconvene in 48 hours to assess progress. As the assembly dispersed, Emperor Vorthon approached Marcus and Lirelai. Up close, Marcus could see the family resemblance, but also the differences. Where Lirelai was warm and open, her father was controlled and calculating. Captain Chen, the Emperor said, walk with me. It wasn't a request. Marcus glanced at Lirelai, who nodded encouragingly, then followed the Emperor to a private observation lounge. Through the transparent wall, the assembled fleets hung in space like jewels against velvet. You seem an intelligent man, the Emperor began without preamble. So you must understand my position. My daughter is precious to me and to our empire. She is also young and idealistic, prone to seeing destiny where there may only be coincidence. With respect, Your Majesty, the threat we face is very real, Marcus replied. If your daughter's research offers any hope— My daughter's research, the Emperor interrupted, has led her to you, a human she has known for less than a week. Do you have any idea what she is proposing? What this union the prophecy speaks of truly means. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. I believe I understand the implications. Do you? The Emperor turned from the window to face him fully. Among our people, such bonds are eternal. Not just marriage as humans understand it, but a merging of life forces that cannot be undone. If you proceed with this and fail, you could destroy her. And if we don't try, the darkness destroys everything, Marcus countered. Your Majesty, I don't claim to understand prophecies or eternal bonds, but I know what I feel when I'm near your daughter. It's like finding a part of myself I didn't know was missing. The Emperor studied him for a long moment. The resonance is real then. I can see it in your bioelectric field. He sighed, and for a moment looked less like an emperor and more like a concerned father. I had hoped, but no. The die is cast, as you humans say. He moved closer to Marcus, and his voice dropped to barely above a whisper. If you hurt her, Captain, if you fail her in any way, no force in any galaxy will save you from my wrath. If I hurt her, Marcus replied quietly, I'll save you the trouble. Something that might have been approval flickered in the Emperor's eyes. The science teams are waiting for you in Laboratory 7. My daughter will meet you there. He turned to leave, then paused. Captain, the prophecy speaks of willing choice. Be certain of yours. Laboratory 7 was a bustling hive of activity, with scientists from multiple species working together with an urgency born of desperation. At the center of it all, Lyrelai stood connected to various monitoring devices, her natural glow fluctuating as readings scrolled across multiple screens. Ah, Captain Chen, Dr. Park called out, waving him over. Perfect timing. The energy patterns the princess emits are fascinating. They operate on frequencies we've only theorized about, somewhere between electromagnetic and quantum fields. Have you found anything useful? Marcus asked, though his eyes were on Lyrelai. She smiled at him, and several monitors spiked simultaneously. Incredible! Exclaimed a Centaurian scientist. The moment you entered the room, her energy output increased by 30%. And you, Captain, you're showing similar patterns, though much fainter. Dr. Rodriguez approached with a handheld scanner. Captain, with your permission, we'd like to run some joint tests. See what happens when you and the princess interact more directly. Marcus nodded and moved to stand beside Lyrelai. She took his hand, and immediately the room's instruments went wild. Energy readings spiked across the board, and a faint visible aura began to form around their joined hands. By the stars, breathed Dr. Park. The energy signature. It's similar to what we've detected at the edge of the darkness, but inverted. Where the anomaly consumes, this creates. For the next several hours, Marcus and Lyrelai submitted to test after test. They discovered that physical contact amplified the effect, but emotional connection seemed even more important. When they spoke of their homes, their dreams, their fears, the energy patterns grew more complex and powerful. There's a problem, one of the Andromedan scientists reported after analyzing the data. While the energy is real and measurable, it's not strong enough to affect anything on a cosmic scale. At current levels, you might light a city, not save a galaxy. Lyrelai squeezed Marcus's hand. The prophecy speaks of a ritual, she said, a ceremony that completes the bond and unlocks its full potential. What kind of ceremony? Marcus asked, though he suspected he knew. A joining ceremony, Lyrelai replied, her cheeks coloring slightly. What you would call a wedding, but deeper. It requires absolute trust, complete openness. The two become one in every sense. The laboratory fell quiet. Everyone understood what was being asked, not just of Marcus and Lyrelai, but of the hope they represented. How long do we have? Marcus asked quietly. An Earth Alliance officer checked the latest reports. At current speed, the darkness will reach the first inhabited Andromedan worlds in 15 days, Earth's outer colonies in 18. Marcus closed his eyes, feeling the weight of billions of lives. When he opened them, he found Lyra Lee watching him with a mixture of hope and understanding. "You don't have to do this," she said softly. "The choice must be free." He thought of his crew, his ship, his life among the stars. A good life, but one that had always felt incomplete. Then he thought of the past days with Lyra Lee, how natural it felt to be near her, how right. Even without the threat of the darkness, he knew what his choice would be. "When I was at the academy," Marcus said slowly, "I wrote a thesis on first contact protocols. I spent months outlining every possible scenario for meeting alien life. You know what I never considered?" He smiled slightly. "Falling in love." Lyra Lee's breath caught, and the glow around her intensified. "Marcus, I'm not doing this just because of the prophecy," he continued, raising his voice so everyone could hear. "I'm doing it because when I imagine facing whatever comes next, I can't imagine facing it without you." The room erupted in a mixture of reactions, excitement from some, concern from others. But Marcus only had eyes for Lyra Lee, who was looking at him with such joy that the very air seemed to shimmer. "The ceremony!" Emperor Vorthan's voice cut through the noise. He had entered the laboratory unnoticed, his expression unreadable. "If it is to be done, it must be done correctly. The ancient texts are specific about the requirements." He approached his daughter and Marcus, and for the first time, included the human in his direct regard. 3 days of preparation, mental, physical, and spiritual alignment. The ceremony itself must take place at a point of cosmic significance, a place where the boundaries between dimensions are thin. "The nexus point," Lyra Lee breathed. "Of course. Father, the space station at the dimensional fold will be prepared," the Emperor confirmed. He looked at Marcus with something approaching respect. "Captain, you will need to select representatives from your people. This union bridges not just 2 souls but 2 civilizations." Admiral Shaw stepped forward. "The Earth Alliance will provide full support. Captain Chen, choose your witnesses. We'll coordinate with the Andromedan delegation for the logistics." As plans began to form around them, Marcus and Lyra Lee found a moment of quiet connection. "Are you certain?" she asked one more time. Marcus lifted their joined hands, watching the play of energy between them. "I've never been more certain of anything in my life. But Lyra Lee, after this, if we succeed, what then? The prophecy talks about stopping the darkness, but not about what comes after." She smiled, and it was both sad and hopeful. "No one knows. The last bonded pair lived thousands of years ago. But Marcus, whatever comes, we'll face it. Together," he finished, and knew it was true. The next 3 days passed in a blur of preparation. Marcus underwent training in Andromedan meditation techniques, while Lyra Lee learned human customs and rituals. They spent hours in joint exercises designed to align their energy patterns, guided by teams of experts from both species. The nights were harder. Protocol demanded they spend them apart, but Marcus found himself lying awake, feeling the pull of their connection like a physical ache. Through the walls of the station, he could sometimes sense Lyra Lee's presence, a warm glow in his mind that promised completion. His crew rallied around him with typical human adaptability. Martinez organized a bachelor party that somehow included representatives from 5 different species and ended with everyone sharing embarrassing stories about their captains. Even the initially skeptical crew members had come to accept and support what was happening. "You know what convinced me?" Lieutenant Johnson told him the night before the ceremony. "It wasn't the energy readings or the prophecy. It was watching you 2 together. The way you move in sync without realizing it. The way you finish each other's sentences. If that's not destiny, I don't know what is." Finally, the day arrived. The Nexus Point station had been transformed, its central chamber decorated with symbols from both human and Andromedan culture. The dimensional fold itself provided a backdrop, a shimmering curtain of reality where space bent and twisted in impossible ways. Marcus stood at the center of the chamber in dress uniform, his chosen witnesses behind him: Martinez, Park, Rodriguez, and surprisingly, Admiral Shaw herself. Across from him, Emperor Vorthan waited with the Andromedan delegation. Music began, a harmony of human and alien instruments that shouldn't have worked together but somehow did. The assembled crowd turned as Lyrelei entered, and Marcus forgot how to breathe. Lyrelei moved through the assembled crowd like starlight given form. Her gown seemed woven from cosmic dust itself, shifting between deep blue and silver with each step. But it was her expression that held Marcus captive. Joy and determination, mixed with a love so profound it made the air shimmer around her. When she reached him, the energy between them sparked visibly, causing several guests to gasp. Lyrelei smiled at his awestruck expression. "Hello, my chosen," she said softly. "Hello, my star," Marcus replied, the endearment coming naturally. Emperor Vorthan stepped forward, his ceremonial robes gleaming with ancient symbols. Admiral Shaw stood beside him, representing Earth. Together, they would officiate this unprecedented union. "We gather at the crossroads of dimensions," the Emperor began, his voice resonating through the chamber, "to witness something that has not occurred for millennia. Two souls from different stars, choosing to become one light against the darkness." Admiral Shaw continued, reading from a text that had been carefully crafted to honor both traditions. "From Earth, we bring the promise of discovery, the courage to reach beyond ourselves, and the strength found in diversity. Captain Marcus Chen stands as representative of humanity's best qualities: bravery, compassion, and the willingness to embrace the unknown." "From Andromeda," the Emperor responded, "we bring the wisdom of ages, the harmony of the life web, and the understanding that all beings are connected. Princess Lyrelei of House Vorthan stands as the bridge between what was and what must be, a guide into unity." The ceremony proceeded with rituals from both cultures. Marcus and Lyrelei exchanged vows in their respective languages, each promising not just love and loyalty, but a sharing of essence that transcended physical form. As they spoke, the energy around them grew stronger, visible now as threads of light that began to weave together. Dr. Park, monitoring from the side, whispered urgently to his colleagues, "The dimensional fold is reacting to their presence. Energy readings are off the scale." But Marcus was aware only of Lyrelei. As part of the Andromedan tradition, they had to share their deepest truths, holding nothing back. Through their joined hands, he felt her consciousness touch his, not invasive, but welcoming, like coming home. He saw her childhood on the crystal spires of Andromeda Prime, her loneliness despite being surrounded by billions. He felt her first glimpse of Earth through long-range sensors and the spark of fascination that grew into something more. He experienced her fear as she defied her father to search for him, and her joy when their hands first touched. In return, he opened himself completely. She saw his orphaned childhood on Mars Colony, raised by the military after his parents died in a mining accident. She felt his drive to explore, to protect, to find meaning among the stars. She experienced his growing feeling of incompleteness and how her presence had filled a void he hadn't known existed. "By the ancient laws," Emperor Vorthan said, his voice thick with emotion, "and by the new bonds we forge today, I ask, do you, Lyrelei of House Vorthan, take this human as your bonded mate to share one life, one purpose, one destiny?" "I do," Lyrelei said, tears streaming down her luminescent cheeks. "Across all dimensions and all time, I do." Admiral Shaw turned to Marcus. "And do you, Marcus Chen of Earth, take this daughter of Andromeda as your bonded mate to face whatever comes with united heart and soul?" "I do," Marcus said firmly. "In this life and whatever lies beyond, I do." "Then, by the power vested in us by our respective peoples," the Emperor and Admiral spoke in unison, "we declare this bond sealed." The moment the words were spoken, the energy that had been building between Marcus and Lyrelay exploded outward. The dimensional fold behind them flared to brilliant life, and for a moment, everyone in the chamber could see beyond the veil of normal reality. Threads of light connected every living being present, and at the center, Marcus and Lyrelay blazed like a binary star. When the light faded and vision returned, Marcus found himself fundamentally changed. He could feel Lyrelay's presence, not just beside him, but within him, her thoughts and emotions flowing alongside his own. It should have been overwhelming, but instead, it felt like finally being complete. "My stars!" someone breathed, and Marcus realized it was Martinez, staring at them in awe. Where Marcus and Lyrelay stood, a gentle aura of light surrounded them, pulsing in rhythm with their synchronized heartbeats. When they looked at each other, the light intensified, and when they kissed, their first as a bonded pair, the dimensional fold itself seemed to sing. The celebration that followed was unlike anything the Nexus Point had seen. Beings from different worlds mingled freely, sharing in the joy and hope the ceremony had brought. But even in the midst of celebration, the urgency of their situation remained. "The darkness has accelerated again," an officer reported to Admiral Shaw during the reception. 8 days until it reaches inhabited space." Marcus felt Lyrelay's mind touch his. "We need to act soon." And he nodded. Together they approached the Admiral and the Emperor. "We're ready," Marcus said simply. "Tell us what we need to do." The next days were a whirlwind of preparation. Scientists worked around the clock to understand how to harness and direct the power Marcus and Lyrelay now wielded. The bonded pair submitted to endless tests, learning to channel their combined energy with increasing precision. "It's remarkable," Dr. Rodriguez reported after one session. "Their neural patterns have synchronized to an unprecedented degree. They're functioning as a single consciousness with 2 perspectives." The power they could generate was indeed formidable. In controlled tests, they could create energy shields that withstood bombardment from capital ship weapons. They could generate fields that accelerated plant growth 1,000-fold or heal injuries with a touch. But whether it would be enough against the cosmic darkness remained unknown. Plans were made to position the fleet at the point where the darkness would first enter inhabited space. Marcus and Lyrelay would be aboard a specially modified ship, designed to channel and amplify their energy through its systems. If they succeeded in stopping the darkness, the fleet would be there to assist. If they failed, the fleet would attempt evacuation of as many as possible before the end. The night before the confrontation, Marcus and Lyrelay stood together in their quarters aboard the flagship. Through the viewport, stars still shone, but they both knew that light years away, that same starlight was being extinguished forever. "Are you afraid?" Lyrelay asked, though she knew his emotions as well as her own. "Terrified," Marcus admitted, pulling her close. "Not of dying, of failing, of all those lives depending on us." "The prophecy," Lyrelay began, but Marcus gently interrupted. "The prophecy brought us together," he said, "but tomorrow isn't about ancient words, it's about us, about what we choose to do with this gift we've been given." Through their bond, he felt her love and determination match his own. Whatever tomorrow brought, they would face it as one. The fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the designated coordinates, and Marcus felt his heart sink. The darkness was worse than any description or sensor reading had conveyed. It wasn't just an absence of light, it was an absence of existence itself. Where it had passed, space itself seemed wounded, reality fraying at the edges. "All ships, maintain minimum safe distance," Admiral Shaw commanded from the fleet flagship. "Destiny's Light, you are clear to approach." Destiny's Light, the ship prepared for Marcus and Lirelai, moved forward slowly. In the specially designed chamber at its heart, the bonded pair stood within a crystalline amplification matrix. Every surface was designed to channel and focus their energy outward. "Energy readings are stable," reported the ship's small crew. "We're as ready as we'll ever be." Marcus took Lirelai's hands, feeling their combined power surge. Through the viewports, they could see the edge of the darkness approaching, inexorable and hungry. "Together," Lirelai said. "Always," Marcus replied. They began as they had been trained, drawing on their bond and letting the energy flow between them. The crystalline chamber began to glow, then blaze with light. Through the ship's systems, that light was gathered, focused, and projected forward in a beam of pure creation. The beam struck the darkness, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then, incredibly, the advance stopped. Where the light touched, the darkness recoiled like a living thing in pain. "It's working!" someone shouted over the communications. "The anomaly has ceased advancing." But Marcus and Lirelai knew it wasn't enough. Through their enhanced perception, they could feel the true nature of the darkness. Not evil, not malicious, but empty, endlessly, terminally empty. It was the absence of connection, of purpose, of the bonds that held reality together. "We need more." Lirelai's thoughts merged with his. "We need to remind it what it means to exist." Together, they dug deeper into their bond, past the energy of their connection to the meaning beneath. Marcus thought of every life in the fleet behind them, every world depending on them. Lirelai reached out through the life web, touching the connections between all living things. But it still wasn't enough. The darkness had stopped advancing, but it wasn't retreating. They were at a stalemate, and Marcus could feel their energy beginning to flag. The prophecy. Lirelai gasped through their link. "We're missing something." And then Marcus understood. The prophecy didn't speak of two beings wielding power. It spoke of unity spreading outward, of bonds multiplying. They weren't meant to face this alone. "All ships," Marcus managed to say aloud, his voice carried by the communication systems. "We need your help. Everyone. Human, Andromedan, Centaurian. Think of your connections, your loved ones, your homes, your reasons for being. Feed it into the light." For a moment, nothing happened. Then, from the Earth ships, a faint glow began to emanate. The humans aboard were thinking of their families, their homes, their dreams. The Andromedans, naturally attuned to such connections, blazed to life like miniature stars. Even the logical Centaurians added their own form of connection, the bonds of knowledge and shared discovery. "Channel it through the amplifiers," Lirelai called out. "Every ship, every soul. We are all connected." The Destiny's Light became a focal point for the combined hope and connection of thousands of beings. Marcus and Lirelai shaped that energy, gave it purpose and direction. The beam striking the darkness transformed from simple light to something far more profound, a manifestation of everything that made existence worthwhile. The darkness shuddered. Where before it had consumed without thought or feeling, now it encountered the opposite: connection, meaning, love. The emptiness began to fill. "Look!" someone shouted. "The stars!" Where the enhanced beam touched, points of light began to appear within the darkness. Not new stars, but the old ones restored, reality reasserting itself against the void. The darkness wasn't being destroyed, it was being transformed, reminded of what it had forgotten. Marcus and Lirelai poured everything they had into the effort. Through their bond, They felt the moment when the tide turned. The darkness ceased to be darkness, becoming instead potential. The space between stars that made their light meaningful. The pause between heartbeats that made life precious. With a final surge of collective will, the assembled fleet pushed the transformation past the tipping point. Like a wave in reverse, the change swept outward. Everywhere the darkness had been, stars rekindled, planets reformed, life resumed. When it was over, Marcus and Lyrale collapsed into each other's arms, exhausted but triumphant. Around them, the crystalline chamber slowly dimmed to a gentle glow, no longer blazing with desperate power, but warm with contentment. "Status report!" Admiral Shaw's voice came through the communications, barely containing emotion. "The anomaly is gone," came the awed response. "All sectors reporting normal space. The consumed systems... Admiral, they're back. Everything that was lost has been restored." The fleet erupted in celebration. Across 3 civilizations, beings embraced and wept with relief. They had faced the ending of everything and emerged not just victorious, but transformed. Later, in the quiet of their quarters, Marcus and Lyrale lay entwined, their bond humming with quiet satisfaction. They could feel the connections they had forged during the crisis, not as strong as their own, but present. Humans, Andromedans, and Centaurians would find understanding easier now, having shared in something profound. "The prophecy spoke of a union to save the galaxies," Lyrale murmured against Marcus's chest. "But I think the real purpose was to teach us something else." "What's that?" Marcus asked, stroking her luminescent hair. "That we're already united. Every living thing, every mote of consciousness in the universe. We just forget sometimes. The darkness was our forgetting taken to its extreme." She looked up at him, violet eyes bright with love and wisdom. "We reminded it, and ourselves, of the truth." A soft chime announced a visitor. With a shared thought, they allowed entry. Emperor Vorthon stood in the doorway, and for the first time since Marcus had met him, he was smiling. "Father," Lyrale said, sitting up. "My children," the Emperor said, and Marcus realized he was included in that address. "I came to apologize and to thank you. I was wrong to doubt the old wisdom, wrong to resist what you knew in your hearts." He moved forward and placed a hand on each of their shoulders. "You have not only saved us all, you have shown us a new way forward." "Not new," Marcus corrected gently. "Just remembered." The Emperor nodded. "The Council wishes to formalize the alliance between our peoples. Trade, cultural exchange, shared exploration. Your union will serve as the bridge, if you're willing." Marcus and Lyrale shared a look, a thought, a smile. "We're willing," they said in unison. In the months that followed, the galaxies experienced a renaissance of connection. The technology that had channeled the fleet's combined will was adapted for peaceful purposes: healing, communication, understanding. Humans learned to touch the life web, while Andromedans discovered the joy of human creativity and individuality. Marcus and Lyrale split their time between Earth and Andromeda Prime, serving as both ambassadors and examples of what was possible. Their bond had only grown stronger, and they discovered that their union had capabilities beyond what even the prophecy had suggested. Together they could heal ancient wounds, broker impossible peace deals, and inspire others to reach beyond their limitations. 1 year after the crisis, they stood together on Earth's moon, looking up at the stars. The ceremony commemorating the restoration, as historians had named it, had just concluded. Representatives from 17 different species had attended, many of them discovering each other for the first time. "Do you ever wonder," Marcus mused, "if we were always meant to find each other? If the universe itself conspired to bring us together?" Lyrale laughed, the sound like silver bells. "Does it matter? We chose each other. Every day we choose each other. The universe may have opened the door, but we walked through it." She took his hand, and the familiar energy flowed between them, warm and welcoming. "Besides," she added with a mischievous smile, "we have more immediate concerns." "Oh?" Marcus raised an eyebrow. Through their bond, she shared a new awareness, a tiny spark of life growing within her. A perfect blend of human and Andromedan, impossible and wonderful. Marcus's whoop of joy could be heard across the lunar base, followed by laughter as he spun Liralai around under the Earthlight. The first child of two galaxies, proof that connection could create more than anyone had ever dreamed. Among the stars, no darkness threatened. The universe remembered itself, and in that remembering found joy. And at the heart of it all, two souls who had chosen to be one continued their dance, writing a new chapter in the endless story of existence. The alien princess had asked, "Do you desire me as your wife?" And Marcus had replied, "Yes." But what they had found together was so much more than either had imagined. They had found not just love, but the key to existence itself. The truth that all beings are connected, that isolation is the only real darkness, and that choosing to bond with another is the highest form of courage. Their story spread across both galaxies, inspiring countless others to reach beyond their own boundaries. Human Andromedan pairs began to emerge, not because of any prophecy, but because beings recognized kindred spirits across the vast gulf of space. The Centaurians, inspired by what they had witnessed, opened their crystalline cities to cultural exchange for the first time in centuries. Marcus and Lirale became living symbols of unity, but more importantly, they remained simply themselves, two beings who had found in each other a home among the stars. Their love had saved galaxies, but for them, the greatest miracle was waking each morning to see the universe reflected in each other's eyes. And in the gentle glow that surrounded them always, the universe itself seemed to smile,